All right, guys. Welcome everybody to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. I have had this interview scheduled with Michael R. Miller for a little while. I'm so happy to finally be here. It's part of one of my favorite stories of all time. How are you, Michael R. Miller?
Oh, well, thank you very much. What a wonderful introduction. I'm great, man. Yeah, it's great that we finally got the stars to align and the schedules to match up. It's great to be on the show. By the way, can I just say that is the coolest background ever.
My
I need to up my game. We're still in a sort of London flat, so it's not like a firm. But when we get off forever home, that's the kind of shit I need to get. Like that's a cool background. That is awesome.
I have to say, it's just a green screen. I wish that was my
Oh, is
book.
it?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Well, that's what I want to build when I get,
Yes,
so,
me too, man. Like I like to build my own bookcases, and I wish I could sit here and say that it looks a quarter that good. But I'm working with what I've got to work with. But yeah, man, my wife found that because right now my area where I do this is like right in the middle of like my living room and my kitchen.
right,
So
right.
yeah, we're kind of just prettying it up. But I appreciate that. What I love is your wonderful display behind you. You've got your books, one of which, well, all of which I can't wait to talk about. One in particular, we'll just start off with it.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, it's evading me. Um, Last Stand of the Stonefish, the novella that you just dropped. Tell us about how that was, because I know it sold out the signed version on the Broken Binding very quickly. How is it being a part of not only the Broken Binding and doing multiple things with them, but just having something that people are so excited to read?
Yeah, these are great problems to have, right? I mean, the novella, uh, Last Stand of the Stonefish specifically, I wrote it after I finished Ascendant, and it was originally just as it still is. It's meant to be there for people to get a little bit extra, but from the mailing list, right? Say you want people to come join your mailing list. This is a good idea. You want to give them some reason to. So I wrote Last Stand as it's sort of a prequel, but it kind of acts more as a stepping stone to book two in some ways. So I do recommend people read Ascendant, then go into Last Stand. You could do Last Stand first, but I wouldn't. There's some minor spoilers, right? It wouldn't make Ascendant perfect. Yeah. So read Ascendant first, yeah, and then Last Stand. That was because that was the order that I wrote it, and it tends to be whatever order I'm writing. I'm going to be pulling on stuff, and that I already written, even if it's a prequel, it's just going to be the flow. So it's like the writing order is generally the publication order. So the publication order is generally the reading order. So you read Last Stand after Ascendant. It's a prequel about the mentor in Ascendant. He gets his own backstory here. We see what happened to him and his dragon and why. It sets up a lot of locations and other world building stuff for the series. So you can move on from Ascendant into Unbound just fine. You don't have to read the novella, but I do think if you read the novella, you'll get a lot more out of the second book and the third book if you've read that in sequence, because it just sort of sets up some things and introduces some characters. So when they appear in Unbound, you'll be like, oh, I know who they are. I've seen them before. Yeah.
Now, what about a guy like me, like who's I've read Ascendant, I've read book 2, Unbound, and well, I'll still enjoy that. Kind of go back and learn a little bit more.
Yeah, you should enjoy the story. It might not, you shouldn't. You'll know some of these characters where they've gone, so you'll see them, little snippets earlier. It kind of works better if you're just meeting them for the first time in the novella, but you'll still get something out of the story anyway. Like, you'll get a lot out of seeing growth and doing his thing. And I bet you some of the bits and pieces will start to make more sense. You might click some ideas, but that's why that character acted the way they did in Unbound, because X, Y, Z. But yeah, I originally wrote that in a little bit of a rush. I would say, like, this was August 2020. I wrote this as I was prepping for the launch of Ascendant, and it was a little bit rushed in hindsight, and it sort of sat there for a long time, and I kept meaning to go back and like improve it. And after I released book 3 this year, I kind of felt like there was never going to be a better time. Before I start another big book, I should just go back to these novellas and improve them, fix them up. So I did that to the Last Stand story, polished it up a lot, really improved it, kind of put 2023 Michael Armello's skill into it as opposed to mid 2020 Michael Armello's skill into it, and didn't rush it this time. And I also had the second novella, which was related to my first series, which is called The Dragon's Blade. And the novella is called The Huntress, and it is also available as an ebook and audiobook from my mailing list now as well. But it's included in the print edition of Last Stand, so you get two novellas in the one print edition. They're both in there, and I rewrote that from the ground up because that was like 11,000 words. It was more like a kind of long short story or a novelette, and that was written way back in like mid 2017 or something, like a long time ago now. So I looked at that and I was like, I could keep like the first 2,000 words or something. I just scrapped the rest and just rewrote it all from scratch. But I took it from about 10,000 words up to about 33,000 words. So it's actually longer than Last Stand. I think it needed it. And I'm by the end of that, I was really happy with how that turned out. And I was a bit daunted because it was weird to go back to that world that I hadn't written in since 2018. So it was a long break, and I was like, oh God. But very quickly, it all came back. And yeah, it almost gave me a little itch to be like, oh, it'd be so nice if I could just get a magic watch and just stop time and go back to the first series and give it a full treatment like this, But I don't have that magic watch. But that story now I feel is in a really great place, and I'm really proud of that one. Probably oddly more proud of it than Last Stand. So hopefully people will pick that up as well and give that a try, and just enjoy it. I mean, it's free. It's free, right? Go get it.
Yes, and I have all that information down at the ticker on the bottom here. Go to his website. It's full of absolute treasures. I wonder how many people are in the same boat as me. We talked a little bit about it before we came on, and I wasn't aware of a couple things. There's a misconception about Songs of Chaos that it's a trilogy, and it's not. There's going to be 5 books.
It's not a trilogy. It's going to be 5 books. Yes.
Very exciting.
Who knows where that came from? But yeah, a lot of things are trilogies, so I can see why people might assume that. But yeah, I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, he just released the 3rd book in this trilogy last year." I was like, no, it's kind of like, and I also think like I wasn't sure. Like when I wrote Ascendant, I had no idea how well it was going to do. So if I hadn't done as well, I might just made it a trilogy, but it did well. So I was like, okay, I have the scope to take this as far as it really needs. And for a while, I thought 6 books, and then I was able to go no 5. And if you get to the end of the first book, you'll be like, I can see why it's 5 books.
Yes,
there's a lot of good reasons why 5 is a good number for this series, for all sorts of reasons in the lore and the magic system and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's the right number. Just got to stick that landing. But yeah, it'll be 5. So there's 2 more. I'm working on the 4th one right now, this is another funny thing when people say, hey, it's a trilogy. And I'm like, I'm 100,000 words into the 4th book, like I'm
the excitement they must feel though.
Well, hopefully, yeah, hopefully.
So I wonder how another thing is I'm in this boat too, where I've read most of what you've published of this story so far. And I'm so excited to go back and read your previous work. And I think what sparked that was that beautiful omnibus you did with Broken Binding. Oh my gosh. And I was another one of those instances where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait a couple days and then I'll get it. No, it was what, an hour you said, or like 10 minutes or 30 minutes?
I think it was 30 minutes, something like that.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
and I get it, man. I absolutely love your prose. What I also love about Songs of Chaos is it takes this main character in a humble beginnings, just some of my favorite stories. And he starts with this dream and it becomes this reality. And you meet these lists of characters that are very deep. I love your character development. I love your world building. And like you said, by the end of book 1, it's an epic. It is. It's an epic. And there's a reason. And this is not necessarily new to me, but I'm beginning to understand it more. Epic fantasy doesn't just consist of knights and armor and dragons. It means something more than that. It's a deep story. And just from me to you, a reader to author, I absolutely love what you're doing.
Oh, thanks, man. Oh, thanks very much, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I wasn't aware
Absolutely.
you'd got through book 2, so that's really cool. I mean, yeah, hopefully you enjoy book 3 as well.
I'm very excited
Some of
about it.
some of the best moments, the last 100 pages of book 3 are pretty intense. I'll say
I love it.
that.
So when you were thinking about starting Songs of Chaos, what was it that inspired you to do so? You obviously have this deep-seated, and I have to agree with you, love for dragons, right?
Yeah, who doesn't love dragons? You know, but
Absolutely.
what? Well, this was 2018. I finished Dragon's Blade. I also wrote I wrote a like RPG standalone story that year as well. And so towards the end of that year, I was thinking, what was my next fantasy series going to be, and trying to think through what I wanted to do. And just I don't know, it just struck me that like yeah, I'd been enjoying the How to Train Your Dragon films. I've loved Inheritance when I was younger, and it just seemed like we hadn't had something that followed up on that at the time. It just seemed like where was the follow up to that? Why is this, there's this big void, or so it seemed. And so I just thought, oh, why not? I'll try it. And I also with Dragon's Blade, like Dragon's Blade found success in the end, but it was a much more uphill battle for a number of reasons. But partly it's not a very it doesn't have a lot of comparison titles. It's kind of hard to describe it to other things. It's a little different just in its setup and some of its world building and stuff like that. And so I felt a bit like worn out by like trying to like sell this like difficult thing. And in the end, it's fine. It's done very well. But in 2018, I was like, okay, so here's the challenge for the next series. I'm going to find like the challenge is going to be like I want like the tropiest thing that I can possibly get, but still make it work. Right? The challenge was take the thing that everyone said you'd be crazy to do, but actually you make it fresh and make it work. I wanted to really look deep into the hero's journey and kind of study that and do a version of that really well, because it's kind of like if you're an artist and you go to art school, they make you do all the different styles until you're allowed to go off and do your own sort of abstract weird stuff, but you have to prove that you can sort of do it. And I was like, okay, people tell me Dragon's Blade's a bit weird. I'm going to make this right on the money, really tropey. I'm going to shove more tropes in than is good for them. Like it's going to be sickly with tropes, but somehow it's going to work. That was the challenge. So, and dragon riding just seemed like the perfect mix of all of that. And
Yeah.
off we went. Yeah.
I
Just sort of dived in. Just sort of dived in head first, really. I decided I would just do it, and there I went. For my sins, there were some drawbacks, like every dragon having a name and having to speak, and it's like you double your characters, so you just hurts your
Yeah, because you get that inner dialogue relationship with both the dragons and the characters that are along on this journey with him. And I like it because, well, one of my favorite parts is the audiobook, because I'm one of those people, if I'm really kind of studying, because I want to write. So this is one of those stories. I'm loving the story, but I'm also studying it for the reasons that you wrote it. I have to go back to one of the ones everybody knows and I love, and that's Wheel of Time. And I've only made it through the first 3 or 4 books, but those tropes just make me feel so good inside. You take these humble beginnings and you put these characters with them, and they go on this impossible mission. And for me, there's books like, well, I'll use one specifically, like Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. That is not a book. I'm not going to write that way. And it takes me a long time to get through that kind of book. It's very dense. Or Christopher Rocchio's Empire of Silence, very dense. It's not one that I would just rush through and say it's necessarily, I enjoy it, but it's not a pleasure read. And this is the best mix of both. Song of Chaos challenges me in some ways, which I absolutely love, and that's why I'm studying it and using that for my personal reasons to write. But it also hits all those check marks for what do I want to read tonight to relax and really just take my mind on this adventure and get that feeling. I always explain it as I get this feeling in my stomach when I know we're about to go on an adventure, and there's multiple times throughout the first two books I felt this way, whether it was specific characters or Ash. I absolutely love Ash because I have a disability. So when I read about a disability, it always kind of touches me in a different way. I like the overcoming things and solving problems, and maybe some characters looking down on that at first. Oh, you can't do this. Oh, you can't do that. Well, watch this. So absolutely love all of those. Go ahead.
Scott, do you mind if I ask what you live with, what your disability is?
Oh yes, Crohn's disease.
Oh, you have Crohn's?
Okay. I do. Yep.
Yeah. So, my cousin has it. I've got a good friend that has it. I'm kind of familiar with it. Yeah. I've got cystic fibrosis, so it's not the same, but autoimmune. We have similar stuff. Yeah.
Yes, man.
It's not mine isn't autoimmune, but there's digestional issues, and there's some crossover stuff.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you deal with things that just because I'm glad you asked, because that's really the reason I found books. I spent a lot of time in the hospital, like losing 100 pounds and just so skinny and just can't stand up. But I couldn't go on those physical adventures anymore. So picking up a book taught me how to go on those adventures when I was down. And thank God I'm pretty healthy at the moment. But I've had those moments, and I can relate with those characters a whole lot. And I'm sure that you can with going through the similar things that you can, or that you've been through. So a lot of people I feel can relate with that.
Yeah, I think it's. I hope they do. I've had some lovely messages to that effect. But it is a bit like, it relates to what you're talking about. Like it's tropey, but it feels a little more than that or something. It's that kind of like, if the whole thing feels greater than the sum of its parts, and it's hopefully something to do with, like, you can boil what works down to its sort of psychological essence, and then you can kind of take that understanding and just put a different character wrapping around it and do something slightly different with it, but still retain the essence. And
it's refreshing.
And so, like, Ash is a blind dragon. Obviously, I'm not blind. You're not blind. We're not dragons. But I can put just enough in about what it's like to have like a condition and have bad health at times, and I'm dealing with that and thinking about that. And the essence of that can relate to you. It can relate to someone else with a different thing. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely,
you could do that. But you can do that with almost every one of the tropes, whatever the tropes are. If you just sort of rinse, repeat stuff, then it's cliche. But if you start to understand what the foundation is, then you can be like, well, does the hero need to be a farm boy? No, he could be a cook's apprentice, right?
Yes.
Does the hero need to be in a prophecy? Not really. You can chuck that out. You don't need prophecy at all. It doesn't really add to anything. You don't need to just drop it all in. You can use what works. It's why when Anakin is a virgin birth in the prequels, everyone's a bit like, didn't need that. Like, didn't really need that, did we? Like, sort of thing.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I think that's one of the, and Craig, Bookworm, I want to say, man, I absolutely love that you bit the bullet and did what you wanted to do with your BookTube channel, man. You're doing wonderful. I've been loving watching your new videos. And he's very true, very right, correct on this. Songs of Chaos has a timeless feel.
Yeah, that was the aim. So I'm glad it's coming across. A little timeless and a little ageless, in the sense that, like, everyone can enjoy it. You don't have to be, like, I know that there are quite young readers that enjoy it, but I've also got lots of older readers that enjoy it, and everything in between, because hopefully it's hitting that kind of timeless feel where you'll pick it up at any point and get a lot out of it, no matter what age you are.
If somebody was to say when, and I was kind of going to ask you this question, but I wanted to give my opinion from somebody I'm pretty experienced with this story now, and I feel like it's going to be similar to what you say, just based on you saying you wanted to be timeless and ageless, which I agree. I could have picked this story, say if I was a reader when I was 14 or 15, because a lot of the themes and maybe I don't know. It's not that they're difficult to understand, but I think experience plays a lot into our experience in books. Um, by the time you're 13 or 14, I think you could pick this book up and have a really fun time with it. Do you feel like that would
Yeah,
be a good starting?
yeah. I know. I've had often friends tell me their 10-year-old read it and then really liked it, and loved it just the same as Percy Jackson and Harry Potter and things like that. The books get a bit bigger and a little darker as they go, but not. But I never really lean into especially graphic stuff. It tends to get emotionally quite dark and sophisticated. But I think younger readers will understand that or get the gist of it. And if they don't, it won't like go completely over their heads. They'll get a sense of it, and they'll know like what's happening with the story there. But I think if you're an adult reading it, you'll recognize that there's a lot of coming of age stuff. You'll recognize those things, but you'll see that there's some nuance that you can appreciate having maybe gone through it yourself. Like I think Holt's, this is more a book free thing, but I think Holt's, some of his emotional revelations around making his sword in book free. I don't want to spoil it, but
Thank you.
that's a very like. I don't think a 14-year-old boy reading that will truly get it. They might understand what's happening to Hope, but they won't get it. But an adult who has gone through that will, or an adult that will be able to recognize what's going on there a bit better. So like I think it can work for everyone. That's the idea. Like there should be surprising nuance and depths at all points because I want it to be timeless. I don't want it to be something that you would return to in 20 years and uh, you know
Yeah.
not have the same experience with.
And I love how Brode is kind of like this kind of old grumpy guy at first, right? And he's got this experience. And I think me as a 33-year-old reader of the book can relate with most of the characters just because you have the younger characters. And then, Talia, she's maybe a little at first, I wouldn't say unaccepting, but maybe she needed things to be proven to her. And then kind of a little jealous. And she goes through these different emotions with as the story goes on. And I love the diversity of those characters, those three in particular. So when did you find your love for literature? Were you young?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, it was so I'm 31, so not too dissimilar to you. And so early 2000s, I was whatever I was 8, 9, 10, and that was just like a golden age, right? It was like Lord of the Rings hit the cinema, Harry Potter was massive, Star Wars had prequels which were fine if you were 10, but there was just a huge amount of like Star Wars games and other cool shit happening. Like it was like a golden era that we've never had since of just like proper fantasy. And Inheritance was happening out all at the same time. Yeah, just this like mashup of these really like awesome big things that like if you were inclined to get into fantasy, that was it. You were done. Like there was no way you were escaping it. So I think it's all about hazing now. I don't know whether I saw Fellowship of the Ring first and then started reading everything after that, or whether there was a bit of overlap or something. But it was all that kind of time. So like, yeah, I was like 9 or something, and they just got souped in for life.
Yeah, I have to relate in a couple ways. It's like I didn't dive back into books like I said until I was 29, but thinking back, I remember being in third grade and reading. And in third grade, I think it was kind of a little quick, but I'm glad that it was an experience. We started reading, Harry Potter, and it was some of my finest memories is Miss Cubion reading us Harry Potter. And we got our little turns to read. I would read, and I really wouldn't. I don't know. I would comprehend it, but at the same time, it was just that I didn't know I was interested in it. But then, as you said, it just got more and more and more into the golden age, as you're saying, kind of when we were growing up. And I have to agree, Lord of the Rings snuck in there for me. So although I wasn't into books, I had very huge fantasy influences that kind of shaped my love now. So who were some of those foundational authors for you? Maybe ones that have their hands in the way that you write.
I mean, Tolkien and Martin are like two massive peaks, quite different mountain ranges, so to
Sure.
speak. And I think I've listened to their work the most, like, fairly much like a pilgrimage. I'll return to Lord of the Rings and Song of Ice and Fire, which I've got the folio edition of Song of Ice and Fire here.
It's beautiful.
I'll return to listen to those in full, not quite once a year, but at least once every couple of years or something like that. Like I tend to go back to those wells, and I love them both pretty much equally, all very different reasons, but they are very different. And I think kind of if one's up this mountain, one's up this mountain, I kind of like to halt. I sort of set a base camp in between or something like that, because I feel like I want to aim for the Tolkien timelessness, but I do like Martin's character work, So I'm trying to do the timeless epic thing, more optimistic, more symbolic, more mythological, less gritty, backstabby, right? But Martin's character work is like tremendous, and I love bringing that kind of character work into the character work is very important to me. If I don't know what is happening with the character, even in a scene, like what's important about this to them, like I just can't write it. So if you kind of blend them up, I guess somewhere in the middle, and then Sanderson for his magic. I mean, I've never really got into Stormlight. I need to try again. I tried it in audio and it just, I don't know, maybe I wasn't in the right headspace, but I like Mistborn a lot. And Mistborn got me back into reading after a time when I hadn't been reading for a long time. Sort of end of school, uni. Allomancy is awesome, and I like the kind of harder systems. I fell in love with that, and I like video games and RPGs, and kind of bringing those blended RPG-esque, slightly harder elements in, and Sanderson's being hard magic and showing how you can do that. So really, it's like those three big guys in a blender is perhaps where I sit, trying to balance, trying to juggle all those things at the same time.
I love that, and I can see a little bit of everything that you are saying in your prose. I can. The core, that was something that I didn't know what it was classified when I read it. I believe I was talking to Joao Silva, and he said, "Oh, you don't know this, but you actually have read a little bit of progression fantasy." I didn't know that this story was necessarily considered progression fantasy. What's your personal opinion on that?
It technically is. But it's very progression light. Like it's like a full on progression fantasy a la Cradle. The advancement up to becoming a god is almost the entire story. Like that's kind of what's always being aimed at, and every book has to kind of push you towards that. Yes, there's other stuff happening, but it's kind of that's what it's really all about in some ways. That's the core. It's kind of like a core power fantasy of your guy starts at 0 and he will become basically a god, and you're just going to see this like amazing journey upwards. And there is that promise in Ascendant and in Songs of Chaos, like Holt will rank up is a promise that I fulfill. Over the course of the story, he will rank up. It follows progression-esque style ideas. You've got cores. Mine are more about, whereas the characters in most progression fantasy have their own core and they grow it themselves. Obviously, in Songs, the dragon has the core, the rider has to assist them, the bond. So the bond adds a sort of difference to that. Like the progression is more about the bond strength, and so it's more about to work. Yes, there is a bit of push more magic into the core and yada yada yada, but really it's about how good is your bond, i.e. how strong is your bond, i.e. how close and good is your relationship. So the progression is pushed by character work more than we're just training. And so it's a progression light. I call it a Dragon Rider epic first and foremost because that's what it is.
Yeah,
it has progression inspired systems, mostly because I was kind of developing the magic system in Songs of Chaos, and it was kind of as it is, but it was a bit half baked. And then I discovered Cradle, and I discovered some of that progression stuff around the same time I was writing Ascendant. and it just really helped me to kind of clarify and refine and sharpen it up and get some of the terminology going. And you know, you can, in book 3 you get spiritual development as well, so you get this like sense of the soul is very important. All those things are progression, Eastern style kind of fantasy, wuxia, zhangxia sort of stuff, but it's light on the ground. I think it works well. I know it can, some people find it off-putting. I know some people think the progression is too heavy. I don't think it's too heavy, because I think it's, whilst there are, like, there's a sequence in book 2 where Hall and Ash are essentially kicked underground and brutally trained in a very brutal fashion for a few chapters.
Yeah.
And some people think, oh, they're just this endless XP grind. And I'm like, no, it's about the character work. You know, like the heart and soul of that is, because if it was just an XP grind, trust me, I would be bored. I couldn't write it. So I kind of mask like all that good character work, which is like your healthy veggies. I kind of mask it in, like, you know, some cheese of
Yeah.
Some people it'll be the other way around, but I see it as a character character arc based magic system, and it just sort of leans on some of these progression tropes. So I think it sits a nice balance point.
It does.
Some people take issue. That's fine. You know, you're not going to please everyone. But it's great that mostly I get a huge crossover with the Inheritance fandom. Now increasingly so, like it's quite noticeable. Like if you look at my reviews on Audible or anything, like you see this come up all the time, people saying that they loved Inheritance and they found this now. And so like people who are generally very, very classic fantasy readers and stuff like that can get into it and they enjoy it, and they don't know it's called progression and they don't know anything about that. So they can just get into it and enjoy it anyway. So I think it does strike a nice balance. So otherwise it'd be putting too many people off.
So it kind of plays back to when so my experience with progression fantasy is very little. I guess the only experience I would necessarily have is what you would call a lit RPG, which is Dungeon Crawler Carl. Very much not in that. That's why at first I was I didn't know that it was even specified in the progression phase. But like you said, it's very subtle. And at first I wouldn't have even considered that to be a part of it. But what I do love is the point that you make. It's character based, and that just makes it more genuine for me, because you see these characters grow in this natural way, whether it's the relationship with the other characters or relationship with their dragon in the core, and that becoming stronger. Excuse me. Yeah, so that's my experience with it. Haney, you can tell him yourself, my friend. He says, tell Michael that Haney says thank you for the giveaway books.
Oh, he's here. Oh, my pleasure. Very welcome. Well done on winning. That was a lot of entries. So.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, he's a good dude, man. He's on my Discord, and I'm sure he's on yours. You have a wonderful Discord, by the way, one that I'm excited to be more active in, because I haven't even been active on mine. We had a baby last year, our 4th baby, and things are finally starting to simmer down a little bit, and I'm going to get some more reviews done this year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So there you go, Haney. You can tell him. We have a lot of wonderful people here. I'm going to throw some comments real quick. Daniel says, personally, I don't consider it progression fantasy for the very reason that it is not wholly focused on leveling up. Corey Ratliff, another wonderful indie author, loves dragons, writes about them as well. He agrees with Daniel.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's light. It's inspired by. You can see that where I'm coming from. I wouldn't call it that, but if you had to call it something, I suppose it's a bit progression based. But I wonder. I mean, I would just also, if people didn't know what progression was, I would just call it a hard magic system.
Yes,
which I don't really. Which is everyone loves. Sanderson, right? Everyone loves hard magic, so I don't know what the problem is.
So I think your experience and my experience with Sanderson are very similar. There's some books. Well, I'll say there's only one book that I've read, which was Elantris. Not bad.
Yeah.
It was okay. Pretty politically based. I liked the story. It had some good themes to it. I'm excited though. I've got what is it? The Way of Kings. I'm excited to dive into that big old chunker because I love an epic. Hence me loving what you do. I like to sit down and just get lost, and no problem, Haney. Alicia White says, I love Michael's Discord. It's one of the best ones I'm in. You guys have one. I'm always if I'm not commenting, I'm absolutely reading. I just always feel like I'm like that guy that has nothing to add. I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that, but I'm always like in the background. They said it pretty good. Let's see over here. Nisma also agrees. 1000% the best Discord.
Thank you, guys.
Just Michael, I didn't know. I don't know if I'm sure you have. You've been all over BookTube lately, but if you on the right hand side, the comments are coming in. So if you can't see them now, they're over there. If you click comments, so
I have been, but you think I'd be more technically savvy at this point. There you go. Thanks for reminding me. I can now see the comments.
Cool. Yeah, some authors, don't even realize that there's a bunch of people talking, and then people are just loving having you on the channel. And I wanted you to know that. So there's absolutely so many people over here love to listen to what you have to say. So this is one of the questions that I knew I was going to ask as soon as I knew I was going to talk with you. I would love to hear about your publishing journey. How did writing kind of start for you? And the publishing journey.
Yes, so I mean, at that moment of 10 years old, and my mind was melted on the floor after fellowship. I guess the seeds were planted, and I don't know when the idea for what became Dragon's Blade first appeared, but I was pretty young. I remember walking about at school thinking about it and things like this, and there were some I don't think they exist anymore, thank God, but there are some very strange early chapters, like handwritten by 11-year-old me somewhere in existence, in the timeline somewhere. May they never see the light of day. So it was always something that was like a little pipe dream. But of course, you never take it very seriously. You never do any creative writing at school. No one ever talks about how you could be a writer. It's rubbish, right? You get all this crap reading that turns you off reading. And I kind of just left it at the back of my head. And then after uni, I came down to London. I was doing a very condensed law degree. So the law degree here would only take 3 years, and this course would be 1 year. So they smoosh it in, but they don't leave a lot out. So it's like very, 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 very intense, very intensive. And lots of things going on at that time. I just moved to a different place, big city, lots of other things that weren't making life very good. And this course was extremely intense. And I just sort of had a quarter-life crisis and decided, no, I want to write books. That's the only thing I really want to do. And it was like my escape valve to start writing Dragon's Blade 1 seriously, because I just needed a reason to get up in the morning. Like it was that kind of time. I was like, I need to get up. I need a reason to get up today, because otherwise, if it's just everything else, I'm not going to get up. And somehow, miraculously, with the energy of a 22-year-old, I suppose, I did all my coursework and then was writing the book at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight sort of thing, in the background. I could never do that anymore. And I finished that course. I finished it, and I finished the book at the same time. And then I knew I would self-publish it because I just had to know it would become a reality. Like if it was going to go into the trenches and the querying and all the rest of it, the odds of it going through that system are very low. And again, to kind of give me the motivation, knowing it would become reality by self-publishing it gave me the motivation to actually do it and to kind of dig myself out of that hole that I was in, mentally. And it took a while. It was a bit of a rough time all around, but Dragon's Blade, the whole book, the whole thing, the whole series was very much my release valve for a lot of that. And so wrote book 1, put book 1 out. Didn't do very well, not much happened there. Wrote book 2, kept going, stuck at it. And that series found success with the box set. So in 2018, I went back to the first book, kind of polished and rewrote a lot of it with the hindsight of the series finished, and improved it a good bit for my then skill level. Put it into a ebook box set, which was a very effective method back then, and out it came. And it just, for whatever reason, a little bit of luck, a little bit of who knows what, that box set just did so well, so spectacularly well. So I put it for 99 cents, but it was in Kindle Unlimited. So you're kind of pushing it up the ranks with the cheap 99-cent sales for like a whole series. But if people download it in Kindle Unlimited and read it all through, you're getting the full amount of money out that way. So it was worth, it was absolutely worth doing, and it just kind of blew up. The box set got to like number 90 in all of Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy because other people were doing this, but for some reason mine just seemed to do beyond the norm, and it also stuck around. So I then turned the price up to more like $2.99, and it peaked up way up here. But when it came down, it didn't just drop like a rock. It just kind of came down very, 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 very slowly. And so that was like my big break, essentially. And after that, I could go full time, and the rest is sort of history. Around, in between that, I was working at Bloomsbury Publishing in London for a little bit.
Okay.
And I started Portal Books with Town Mathru and Gaston. They're still going strong. So yeah, a lot's happened. But I've been full time writing since that kind of takeoff in like 2018, and here I am.
So
still going.
So the ebook box set that you're talking about, you dropped
Yes.
that in 2018.
September 2018. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I always like to, because I think a lot goes into that sort of success. And one of the things, well, this is what I've heard. I've not been a part of this process. I've never published. This is just what I hear. And you basically, you touched on it. Timing has a lot to do with it. I was talking to a traditionally published author the other day who is knows what they're talking about. I believe it was Adrian Tchaikovsky, and he's like, man, I sat here and got denied, and for some reason I couldn't tell you why, because it's not a lot different that I did this time or that time. Timing had a lot to do with it. I also hear that during 2020, the publishers weren't printing a lot of books. Kind of the publishing thing went a little wacky, is what I hear. Again, I wasn't paying attention to it then.
Yeah.
This is just what I hear. But I hear success stories because of that. Again, timing. And then also, I was, nothing really happened for me because, again, timing. So that point being made, what do you think it was for you, other than timing? Do you think maybe you hear of trends, and I wouldn't say that. I don't know. What do you think about those trends? Okay, I see. This is my example of a trend. When I go to Walmart, I see a lot of YA, love triangle, whether it's fantasy or thriller. It kind of all falls into the same idea right now. I'm not really into that. Do you think that, I don't really know what I'm trying to say. Do you think that when you published that ebook box set, that it maybe fell into the timing and a trend that was going on, or was it because of something?
I don't think it was a trend
different?
I don't think it was a trend for a particular type of story. It was just there was a kind of, let's call it a marketing trend, because when I first did it, and when I first published the first book, very late 2015, and I consider 2016 my first main year, I didn't really see a lot of box sets going on. I don't know if that's because we couldn't do them or something, but in 2018, just suddenly there was a lot of box sets happening, and people were using it as a way to market stuff because it was, higher value for money and stuff like that. So it became quite popular to do, because at this point in time, the Amazon algorithm treated the 99-cent sale with the same ranking increase as a regular sale. So 99-cent sales used to be a lot stronger than they are now, because you could get very good rank spike, which would get you a nice visibility spike. And they could, and they did, give you a long tail off the back. They would call, what they used to call them was, it would fly spin you through the store. So if you got a nice big boost on a 99-cent sale, you would get a little boost off the back of that, and you could actually, your ranking could actually stay high or go up afterwards, because the algorithm would start pushing you. It thinks you're popular and it's going to push you. And then for whatever reason in machinations, Amazon decided that they didn't like this. Like, they must have decided they didn't like this, because basically, I want to say about 2020, maybe even late 2019, they started to suppress the 99 sale rankings, right? So you can still get the benefit of a discount by just getting more readers and more sales, and that has a lot of benefit. But you will not get the same rank boost, right? So you could, we don't know what the calculation is, but maybe it's 10 to 1. But maybe back in the day, a 1.99 sale would get you the same rank increase as a paid sale. Now you maybe need 10 or more to get that same, so they've suppressed 99-cent sales a bit, which is why on the ebook charts, you don't see just a whole swarm of 99-cent books at the top like you used to, because they kind of suppressed that then, which is probably a good thing, because otherwise it was maybe diminishing the value a little bit too much. But what it meant was, at the time, if you offered a whole series of at least multiple books for 99 cents, that's like huge value for money. And so a lot of people will just grab it. If they don't know me from Adam, they didn't know it, they wouldn't know you, nothing about you, but like, hey, you can't go wrong there. That's 99 cents for the whole thing. Screw it. I would get that. You would get the visibility, and that kind of works. So there was a marketing trend in 2018 to do this. And it might just be that I came in just as it was peaking or something, just that might have been luck, because people were doing it early in the year. I came in, mid to late in the year, and then probably by 2019, the whole thing had collapsed. So in that sense, I think fortunately I benefited from that timing. But in terms of the story, no, I don't think there was any trend on the story. As I say, it was a kind of a difficult story to sell in some respects. But yeah, I benefited from a marketing trend more so than the story trend. But
It's crappy.
Publishing things work one year, they don't work the next year. So what worked for me might not work for you. We have to just try and do the best thing you can do is just put together the best book you possibly can, hopefully in a way that you can easily talk about it, so you can easily tell people what it's about, so they might want to buy it. Put a bloody good cover on it, get a title that really works. All of that is what you can control. Everything else you can't really control. And then if something looks like it's working well, you can experiment, because that's the beauty of this being indie. You can experiment, you can try. That worked, right? But I tried a whole bunch of things before that, which I can't really remember, right? They didn't work. Just discard them. And the same with Ascendant, the same with Songs of Chaos. Like I'm experimenting all the time, trying new things. And that's kind of what you have to keep doing. You can't rely on the old methods from 3 years ago, and you have no idea what's coming along the corner. Something could change. Yeah.
As terrible as I did in asking that question, you did such a wonderful job of answering what I was trying to ask, because the story isn't what I was meaning as far as a trend. It was, what do you think was popular in the old algorithm at the time that was, something that you guys pay attention to a lot more and have experience with, which is what I'm after with this channel, is that knowledge. I hope that a lot of people who watch me also, on top of loving the authors who I talk to, love that information given during that hour and a half.
The algorithm I would say the algorithm is less easy to game now. So I think a few years back, I think 2018 and before then, and when I say game it, I think you could, if you propelled the book hard enough on the promotional at launch, you could kind of trick the algorithm into thinking you were more popular than you are, and you would get a big boost off of that. But they seem to have done something, and of course Amazon changes stuff, but they don't tell you what they've done. We just sort of see how the store changes, and how tactics aren't working the same way and stuff like that. I think there's been a sort of normalization in some of those rankings, and what it has done is it's made it I think it's made it harder to propel things by just brute force.
Mm.
But I think it has become a little more stable for if you kind of get a certain critical mass, if you've kind of got a really great story. If I think it's become a little more stable than it perhaps was. So if you can break through, if you can crack through a bit, I think it's a little more generous than it was before. Because I think before they were probably relying a lot on just what's moving and what's selling and stuff like that in a kind of time window. And I think there's a more holistic approach. I think it's a more sophisticated approach. We still don't understand it, but it seems a little more stable. Like the audiobook store is similar. The audiobook store is kind of is quite hard to crack, but if you do crack it, it's very, very stable, very steady. The recommendation system seems to work much better over there. But it is harder to game. You can't. There's no tricks, right? There's no. You do want to put as much welly as you can into your promotions and things like that, but it's a long haul game. Like day one of launch, no big deal, right? The first month, the first year, you just have to keep going at it. You know, every week, every month, every book. You just snowball it up like as an avalanche almost. You have to just keep working at it constantly because, like, and also you never know what's going to happen. You never know when Audible are going to give you a promo, or Amazon are going to give you a promo. Like yesterday when the box set was on promo on Audible, I had no idea. No one told me. They didn't tell. They don't tell you, and suddenly it's like shooting up, and so
Number 6.
Oh, it keeps
Didn't
number
go
3 apparently.
Number 3.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing,
Number
bro.
3 in the whole store. Yeah, it's mental.
The whole store, guys, not in fantasy, not in just Dragon Ride.
Yeah.
The whole store, people.
For a hot minute, I was beating Fourth Wing. There you go.
Yes, that's incredible. And it's self-publishing at its finest. Look, that's inspiring, dude.
But that's Audible giving it a big boost, and you've no idea when something like that's going to come around. You just have to keep working every day at it, pushing a little bit all the time. It's a bit of a grind. There's no easy tricks. Really.
So one of the things I see you do, and it's something I can absolutely feel, and personally that attributes to how well you've done. And you're always doing giveaways. You're always, especially like within this last year, and probably longer, just because I haven't been paying attention other than just like the last year. You're all over doing interviews. You're making yourself public. You're putting in that extra work for people to hear about your stories. I've seen you on big booktube channels. I've seen you on smaller booktube channels. You're doing the thing, man, and I think that is so key, because something that I think is the best marketing skill is that word of mouth. And a lot of that plays into booktube. A lot of that plays into Twitter or Discord, talking with your fans, being there, being tangible in a way. They can reach out and get your opinions on things. All of that plays into something you're doing very well. So I wanted to tell you, I could see that. And I know all these people over here in the chat that are part of your Discord, man, it's so cool to see. And I think you're doing a wonderful job at that. So to hear this experience that there's no one answer. You've been tenacious. This is a passion of yours. And through that passion, you've done this and you've done this. This has worked. This didn't. But also knowing that at the end of the day, that you have to keep doing that, even 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 10 years after you've released this book, because it's always changing.
It always is. I think, if you can push the boulder far up the hill, it should hopefully get some momentum. Like, hopefully when Songs of Chaos ends, I don't need to constantly be trying to push it, not least because I'll be working on something new, but hopefully it will have picked up some steam, right? They can pick up enough steam eventually, but it takes a while. I'm glad. I'm pleased I'm very flattered that you think I'm good at this. I don't think I'm very good at doing this sort of stuff. For a long time, I was just a little hermit. Like, I wasn't really super active online until late 2022, maybe. I tried a bit when I started, and it didn't go very well. So I just thought I'll just sit in my cave and write. And it's been the last year and a half that I've really tried to get out there a bit more. And what I've noticed is that it's a slower game, right? Like, you've got different marketing methods. You can just do direct ads on Amazon and Facebook, and I've done both to various successes and stuff like that. But the people that you reach here on BookTube, on Twitter, anywhere else on social media, seems to be people who might have classed as traditional readers, meaning they typically read more print, which is totally fine. But that means they weren't going to find indie work because it doesn't exist in Barnes and Noble or Waterstones, right? And they're not necessarily browsing Audible or Amazon. So, and they're kind of maybe more the super fans. And actually, if you put a bit of effort in, you can reach out to them. And so, like, I've seen a massive explosion in print sales over the last year. And I think partly it's from this sort of stuff. So, like, every avenue can relate, you can connect to different people, right? I took off with, my audio took off during COVID because I started doing really well with Facebook ads to audio. The ebook stuff was kind of that algorithmic gimmick with the set initially. You know, like the print stuff is this stuff, and working with broken binding, like all these things, it's like all together. Again, you've got to do all the stuff all together.
Yes.
It is a lot of work. It helps also that I'm full time, so I have more time to do all this stuff as well. You know, with people that are just starting out, yeah, it's bloody hard. I understand. Don't blow a gasket. You know, if you're just starting, I would say focus on like one thing first and just do that well before you try the next thing. Because if you try to do everything right away, you'll probably just do it all not great. Maybe you'll be amazing. And there's always those people that do everything amazingly from the get-go. But realistically, yeah. If I remember what it was like to be writing with a job, and like it's bloody hard.
Yeah.
And trying to do all the business stuff is it's awful. Like you just got to make the best use of your time, and usually the best use of your time is going to be working on the next book, generally speaking. So yeah, people just you have to balance that up. But again, it's not a race. Most authors, most books do not take off straight away. Again, you'll find some exceptions, but for most things, it takes a long time to ramp up. There's a reason why we say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Ooh, yeah, right? I like
and
that.
You can float around in the background like people. Like myself, I wasn't that online. Philip C. Cornfield, not that online, but Phil absolutely kills it, and most people don't know who he is. If you go to a convention here in the UK, I think now they finally got a hold of it, but for years I was going to cons here, talking to people in the industry, telling them about Fredo and Will White, and they're like, "Who's that?" I'm just like, "How do you not know?
Yeah.
We sold like 1 million books last year."
Dude, yeah.
People, everything's really fragmented. That you think actually everything being online and together. No, everything's really fragmented, and it's actually really hard to get everyone aware of a book, which is why we haven't had. There was a video where maybe a Brandon Sanderson video. I don't know who he was talking to, but they were wondering why there hasn't been another massive offer since like the mid 2000s. You know, since Pat Rothfuss and Brandon himself and all that. Like,
yeah,
Joe Abercrombie. It's because the market's just been shattered into like a billion pieces, like all and so it's really hard to get everyone. Back in the day, you could only buy print and you could only get it in the stores, and so everyone had to go there, and so everyone saw the same stuff. But now it's all over the place. So it is hard to reach out to all these different places. Absolutely, it's tough work. No doubt. So what was the question? I feel like I went off on a rant there.
No. You did perfect. I was just commenting on how tenacious you've been in many different areas of publicizing yourself, marketing, which is the number one answer when I ask, hey, what was the most unexpected or most difficult part of this publishing process for you? I can almost guarantee you that it's going to be marketing, because sure, it takes one hell of a set of skills, tenacity, discipline to write a book. I'm finding that out personally. It's not so easy to just sit down and know your method, because look, there's many different ways to do it. And that's where I'm at, very beginning. So to find an author that is passionate enough and wants to succeed in his passion enough to do what you're doing in as many places that you're doing it. I see you everywhere. And I think that that's working wonderfully for you. That was all I was saying. And you kind of touched on that. You have to kind of be a man or woman of you have to wear multiple hats because it's not centralized anymore. It's not just Barnes & Noble or Half Price Book, whatever it is. There's ebooks, there's audiobooks, and it kind of plays into, you hear this new term. It's like, it's not new, but newish, niche down. That's what you hear as like a booktuber to succeed. Not just fantasy. I talk to published authors, self-published authors, and traditionally published authors. But I guess if I was to niche down anymore, it would be like just self-published authors. But I'm after knowledge, and both sides of the spectrum have wonderful knowledge to give. But that just plays again back into this fragmented market that it is. There's a niche for everybody.
Well, I mean, part of the way that we'll knit it together is if people stop decamping traditional authors and indie authors into different camps, and it's getting a lot better. It used to be god awful. I mean, there's still some weirdness about it in places, but it's getting a lot better. But the more people just think of us as authors and stop caring how you're published, at least could that in terms of the audience and everything, then it's all the same people reading it. We're all trying to do the same stuff. And the traditional authors have an agent, but they're dealing with multiple publishers. They're dealing with multiple entities. I'm dealing with KDP and Amazon. I'm dealing with Audible. I deal with Ingram Spark to my print. I deal with Broken Bind to do other stuff. I've got a few foreign rights content. I've got like all these other entities that I deal. We all have the same experience, sort of. I mean, not ultimately the same, but very similar, and everyone can learn from the same thing. And so it's part of the way we'll knit all this back is by not separating out spaces and things like this. Like, just we all like the same stuff,
I'm glad you touched on that, because me personally, I've always felt like I had to, like, as a part of this channel, say traditionally published or self-published. And as of late, I've felt self-conscious about that. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't bother. Just if it comes up naturally, that's great. But why do we feel the need to do that? And it comes up a lot in reviews of my work. Sometimes, and if anyone's talking about a book, they will say it's by Michael Miller, who's a self-published author. It's like, just who cares that stuff? Does anyone care? Just say. I mean, because what it does is it keeps these were kind of forced in. I don't know when it was forced in, but this was kind of like, there was this weird reaction to when self-publishing became a thing, and it's just not necessary anymore. Like, it really isn't. Like, people say, "Oh, there's a lot of dross self-publishing." Well, maybe there is. There's 6 million, 7 million ebooks on the Kindle store. Sure, they're not all masterpieces, but you're probably not going to come across stuff that's had no effort put into it. Like when people are trying their best and being professional, like, it's generally going to be pretty good. And so we're just all authors, and readers. I don't think readers really care, but if they did care, if whatever baggage they bring to those two terms, we can just drop them. I agree. That's my 2 cents. You could just drop them. But if it comes up, it comes up. Like, you're talking to me, we're going to talk about self-publishing stuff. That's fine.
And I feel that the only time that it's important to, and I started this channel with that bit of ignorance, I have to say, because I came with that thought that I think some people still have, but most people who actually know what they're talking about nowadays, your experiences and the job that you're doing, very similar. Okay. And I've come to learn that, which is why, as of late, I have felt that way about specifying, because again, I'm on the exact same wavelength as you are. Having said I've talked to both, it's like talking to the same, because these, and Craig says it the best. I'm going to throw his comment. The line are definitely blurring between traditional and indie authors, especially on social media. A lot more trad authors interacting a lot more with readers than perhaps they had previously. And the marketing too. Even as a trad pub, you are doing most of your publishing or your marketing. So the jobs are becoming one and the same. The only thing I look up to more, I guess, if I'm specifying, which I don't necessarily want to, but if I am, is the tenacity and the hard work, the passion, the dedication, and the discipline it goes into having a 9-to-5 job, not getting that initial. I've heard authors, you get that initial offer, and but I have so many like self-pub author friends that are building homes or have that 9 to 5 job. Um, so that particularly, I want to speak on that. It comes through. It's very inspiring to me. You're a full-time writer. Your experience from a traditional isn't going to be much different. So I love your point, and I'm going to absolutely start considering not having those separations, because I don't think it's modern times is what I'm trying to say. Those two um, terms are becoming one. So I'm glad that you touched on that. Talking Story, John, thank you for being here, brother. I loved your interview with John. He has a wonderful channel.
Hello, John. Yeah, good on, John. Good on. I love that interview. That was back before I had the good camera, so I'll have to go back on again.
John's a solid man.
Terrible webcam.
And his YouTube channel, man, it's just blowing up, dude. It's like, bro, we started at the same time, and
I sent John a message the other day because I just was scrolling through, stuff while it was on YouTube, and something popped up, and I was like, "How's John getting on now?" I was like, "Oh my god, what happened to you?" It just like blew up so fast.
So fast. Yeah. So really happy for
it. There's a bunch of you guys that have like started sort of, I want to say in the last 6 months, and you've done pretty for BookTube specifically. You've come up quite fast. A lot of you guys, so it's been really great to see. Yeah.
It's fun, man. Me and him started about the same time. He has way more followers than I do, or subscribers, but he does these wonderful recorded videos, something that I hope I have the time to do this year. But I particularly love that. And that he finally, with your interview, jumped on board with doing interviews. Because, if you've seen my channel, that's pretty much all I do at the moment. So, yeah, man, John, you're killing it. Love it, dude. And he says, now the hybrid model seems really valid. Project to project, publish the most effective way. Ooh, I like that.
The options are opening up. Like, everyone's doing Kickstarters. It's all, it's all blurry. So blurry.
Yeah, absolutely. Ithra, I wanted to thank you for this comment, but you also make a point. So I'm not throwing it up there just to thank you. She said, this channel works. I've already bought and listened to 3 new series that I saw here. That means so much to me, because I bring attention to people who I thoroughly look up to. Just like Michael's a perfect example. He's a nice, respectful guy. He's got good, wonderful prose. He's doing it. He's being what he's wanted to be. And again, he's a decent human. There's lots of people who, you could say the opposite about, who aren't respectful. So I dig what you're doing in the way that you do it. And that's why I absolutely love having you on. But thank you for saying that, Ithra. I think it's important to draw attention to people who I look up to, because I look up to certain people for a reason, and it's usually a moral reason. So thank you for being here. And she also makes another wonderful point. I don't care how I get published. I'll sign the dotted line in blood. I'm just kidding. No, but she makes a point at the beginning. Authors have this, I think it's a superpower. People look up to Superman for certain reasons. I look up to authors for the fact that you can take me on this ride, this adventure, and it's something that I hope one day that I can do. Ariana Weldon, I like how you put this. She says, Michael is a good egg, and it's awesome to support good authors. They're good. Yes, very much so. Ariana, we get along. Thank you, Craig, so much. That means the world to me. I appreciate you. He's a wonderful person, great reviewer. And soon to be up there with John on the subscriber list, man. He's doing wonderful stuff. And he's on this. I'm so jealous because I've been signed up for the Broken Binding subscription, like tier 1 list for like a year now. I think I started at like 7,000. Look, people, they've got a list so deep, and it's coming up.
List. Yeah.
I'm excited. So whenever I see a book, and I'll never make this mistake again, because I was going to buy, and I seen John was able to get it, the omnibus of Dragonblade. It's so beautiful, and unfortunately I missed out on that. But for those years to come, I'm excited to be a part of it.
They still have them. They're just not numbered, right?
Yeah. I thought, that was another part of the Broken Binding I didn't understand at first. I thought that when they did you did 1,000, right?
No, so I've not done any of these big things with them yet. So like it was just 100 omnibuses that were numbered because it was the
Okay.
first 100 printed, basically. Same with the novellas. And they sell my hardbacks. They have my hardbacks in stock permanently that are signed, just plain signed. Now we've got nicer title pages for them and stuff like that, but they'll just be signed. So I go up and I hand sign them. We haven't done this sort of full-on special edition stuff. That's when it's like 1,000 plus, and they're sometimes more limited. But these ones they're just there. As long as people keep buying them, they'll keep selling them. But they're just regular signed copies. The reason why they're numbered are a little more special is because they're kind of like the first 100 printed. So you get that number and you know that was part of that first ever print run sort of thing. Because with indies, we don't have print runs, right? So it's harder to kind of say this is like a first edition, but that's like as good as it's going to be like, this is a first edition of this thing, whatever it is.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I found that I love, and I knew I would, but getting those, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. I have this section on my, I'm looking at it. So I'm not just like aimlessly looking up, but I have this section for all of my signed authored books. So naturally, becoming a fan of yours lately, I've been looking into grabbing one of those. So I'm glad to hear that those are going to be on a continual basis, because I didn't know that at first. I thought that once they did that first run, that it was over with.
No. All of them are available. They're just signed now. Unless it specifically says numbered, it'll be signed and they'll be there. So if you order them, if people keep ordering them, Matt will keep stocking them. That'll be great. And
awesome.
Hopefully one day we'll do something more special.
Oh my gosh, I can absolutely see that in the
future. That'll be fun. I'm sure we'll get there one day.
Yes, he does the best things. He does the best for authors, man. He just does wonderful stuff. I'm actually gonna have him on the channel soon. I don't remember the exact date, but it's gonna be him and Sean Speakman from Grim Oak Press, just talking about the business side of this thing. So it'll be super fun. So another one of these questions that I ask most of the time, but it's because it's kind of selfish. I want to know the answer for me, and I know that other people want this too. What does your writing process look like? Are you an explorer / pantser? Are you an outliner? What is your deal?
Whatever gets me through.
Sure.
I have whatever works really, but I've become I tend to outline in chunks and write, and then kind of, so like before I start the book, I need to have a very skeletal outline, beginning, rough, middle, end, basic character arcs, all that in place, and then typically have like the first quarter or so gets noted out and outlined quite quickly, and then I'll build stuff that I feel like I need and all the rest of it. Then as I come to start the book, I'll get that first few chapters up, and then I'll plan each chapter more granular. I'll be okay, so this is our scene. This is where we'll open. It'll flip to this, flip to the all the way down, and I'll try to get the whole chapter now out as notes, stream of consciousness notes almost before I start writing it. If I can do that, then it will be a piece of cake to actually write it. So you could say it was like 2 days of planning. I'll then blitz the chapter in a day because it'll kind of all be there, and I'm just like turning it into prose. But sometimes you get a bit stuck. Sometimes I'm like, I don't actually know what is going to come next. And if I can't quite figure that out, if I start writing, then sometimes that unlocks things. So it's a bit of both. I outline vaguely, and then I'll outline very detailed in a kind of chapter by chapter basis, or in a kind of segment, sort of like a few chapters at a time. I'll write all those, and when I reach the end of that, I go, okay, what's coming up next? Okay, I'll start planning again, and go from there. And that's working pretty well now. Defiant was a horrible book to write, and I think I learned this on Defiant when I came to do the last couple of POVs. When I came to do the Osric and Rick POV in Defiant, I started to do it this way, and that went a lot smoother. and I've just taken that through into book 4. So it kind of works out that I might spend the same amount of time roughly, but it's a smoother process, and there's less like tearing my hair out and staring at a screen with my eye cocked and like going, jittery, and writing some garbage and then having to edit it, like I think it's really helpful. And hopefully what it means is in the end, each chapter is fairly well structured and clean. And it's not so much about rewriting, it's just going to be polishing and tweaking and things like that. And I'll catch problems sooner. So they're big books that will still take a long time to get through them. But I think it's turned into a smoother process now. I used to kind of do that vague outline, and that was good enough, and I just kind of pantsed a lot of it. But there's no way with these ones. There's no way. You gotta be really detailed and strict. And I
keeping
find
everything cohesive.
Yeah, if I do that, I can encounter problems. It's a bit like I don't want to assume, but I assume you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh yes, very much so.
Okay, have you watched all the behind the scenes stuff as well?
Yes, I have.
Okay, right. So when I think it's on the behind the scenes of Fellowship, they made I don't know if it was all the movies or just the first one, but they made the movies into like animatics, so it wasn't like even like a full cartoon. They just took the storyboard and they kind of put it together into like a sequence so it would run in film. And then they got a bunch of random, college student actors to voice the parts. And so they could actually watch the whole film in a kind of weird sequence. And then therefore they could catch problems ahead of time and stuff like that. And this way, if I have a really detailed note of a chapter, I can see the pacing and I can catch any problems or spot any holes or gaps or be like, oh no, wait, that looks like that needs more setup. I need to put this in here to set this thing up for the next chapter or something like that. I can catch all that before rather than writing the whole damn thing and then realizing it ahead of time. So that is becoming my smoother process. Takes the same amount of time, but it feels better for me to do it this way. And I think it will result in a better book.
Thank you for sharing that for a couple reasons. I had this thing in my head where I was like, if I want to write, I'm going to pants, right? Because, Stephen King does that and he's the best. No, sir, not me. To keep things cohesive, I couldn't go 2 days with keeping things cohesive that way, let alone a novel. Not part of me. So what I'm doing now, and I'm going really slow about it, like, I don't necessarily feel pressure from people to write. I feel pressure from myself. I've been talking about I want to write for a while, and people are excited about that. And that's kind of another reason I started this channel. But to find that right process for me has been taking a little while. Just, you got 4 kids, this and that. But what I'm finding is this is where I'm at. I'm going to outline the beginning, middle, and end, of course. I mean, that sounds stupid to say out loud, but knowing what those plot points are for me, not a bunch of detail, enough detail for me to fill in with some creative freedom. But I also got a really good piece of advice that I think, and I haven't gotten one yet, but I'm about to, is to have like a whiteboard. And as I'm going through these plot points, kind of break those down a little bit and, go from there. So, not really me asking a question, but maybe relating in a little bit that I think I have to have that outline, maybe not too specialized. Like I said, I want that freedom of just writing and it coming to me as I'm inspired by things.
Yeah. The thing is, like, your outline isn't like legally set in stone. Like, I'm always changing my outline. And if you find some better idea or you get inspired by something in the drafting, then great, you go back to the outline and you adjust it. That's, it's not, no one's going to hold you to it. The outline is only for you. No one else will ever see it. And just, you just try different things and see what works for you. And everyone's going to be different. I think for a long time I resisted doing lots of planning because it didn't feel like real work, if that makes sense. It felt like, I should just write stuff. But, returning to that well of how they made Lord of the Rings, it's like, no, it was years and years and years of ultra planning. and very carefully seeing stuff, and you can see the process of how a scene changed a lot over time because they were refining and refining, and you only do that if you're planning and thinking about it deeply. Because if you're just winging it, some people that works, but if that's not your process,
Yeah.
So yeah, never be afraid to plan. So long as you're getting the ideas down and you're figuring out your problem solving, that will make the actual writing a lot easier because all that will be in place for you. Especially character motivation, like why they're in this scene, what they want, what they're doing, all that sort of stuff is very important. You can sometimes get caught up in plot, but you need to know what the character's all about. You need to know why they're there and what they're doing.
Philip Quintrell. I always mess up his name, but he was one that recently I was talking to, and just really hit home those. He was talking about how he develops these characters and he lets them tell the story, rather than getting caught up in that plot. And I loved that, and that's really what you're saying. I think part of the process too for me is going to be, I love characters. I do. And it's one of the reasons I love your books. And it's one of the reasons that I want to write. And finding that process for me isn't coming as fast as I thought it would.
It wasn't like your first book. Like, don't worry about it. It's not. You think your first book's going to be perfect? Like,
no,
no book's going to be perfect. Like, your first book's going to be your first book, and it might be fantastic, and you might be punching above your weight, and it might be, but you're going to learn so much just by finishing it, and going through that process, and that's going to be the best way to learn, and you'll find your process by finishing books.
Amazing.
Like I've come to this current process. This is book. What am I on? 8, something like that. 8, 9. I don't know.
Yes,
No,
8 or 9.
8.
I had to count for a second.
I didn't know what written. Yeah.
I'm excited to read your lit RPG, by the way. That seems super cool, man.
This one? Oh, wait.
Check it.
I'll copy it here. The book that no one knows about, but
Love it. Dude, I love the cover. I'm loving the blurb. I just recently, again, I just found out about it because, I've been reading this Songs of Chaos, but I'm definitely excited for it.
Yeah, no, I love Battle Spy. Battle Spy was the most fun I've ever had writing, and I wrote it in like 3 months. It came out super fast. It was really good, but for multiple reasons, I wasn't able to continue it. I was planning to continue it, but just the way things worked out, that's not going to be possible. Thankfully, it is like a standalone. Like it really works just as there's no cliffhanger ending. Like it all wraps up very nicely. So
good deal.
I had tons of fun writing that one, and it's first person. It was completely different. Like it's first person because it's like RPG. It's sort of near future, so I got to use real world terms, which was great.
Yeah.
Didn't have to think of all this fantasy jargon. Like that, it was really great. I liked it a lot, and it felt like practice for Ascendant in some ways because it was kind of looking at the hero's journey a bit. And Jack is like the hero in Battle Spy. Jack is like a combo in some ways of like we're in Dragon's Blade. The main characters, it's all about a redemption arc. It's like a whole redemption epic, the whole thing. And Songs of Chaos is quintessential hero's journey, going through that. And Battle Spy is kind of in the middle where you have a hero's journey, but you also kind of have a redemption arc happening at the same time. So it was kind of like, it was like my denouement off of one and the practice for the next one in some ways. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I found that those are so important. And I think half the battle for me was like knowing that my first book is going to be, obviously, if I continue to write, the worst of the bunch, right? And to know and finish that, knowing this, me being the perfectionist I am, because I used to, I would write a sentence and then I'd go back and make it perfect. Like that first draft, as I've heard, get that bad boy out, get those ideas on paper, get it done, and then let's start on our second draft. And I've found that to probably be the best thing I've heard as far as getting it done. So yeah, Craig, he has a question. Will there be more dragons after Songs of Chaos? Something different or too soon to say?
I have an idea for the series after songs. I'm thinking no dragons. 'Cause I think I've done that. I think I've done enough of that. And I think the idea that I have wouldn't need them. They wouldn't necessarily fit. And I don't want to. I also don't want to do like the whole stick in the same world for everything. So Dragon's Blade's a totally separate world from Songs of Chaos, and I'm quite happy to stick that way. You know, lots of. I mean, a lot of indie authors, a lot of authors do stick in the same world for a lot of series, and that's makes sense. But I think even with songs now, I'm enjoying bits of book four. But I am also eager to finish it as much as I am sort of starting to think about the future a little bit. Like I've been working on Songs of Chaos since 2018, so once we get to the end of this year, I'll have been working on Songs of Chaos for 6 years, and I have a fifth book to go. Like it's a long time, and I wouldn't want to do too much more on that one, and so I don't want to be in that world, and I want to kind of go off and try something different. It will still be, my style, which is recognizable tropes and things that you kind of see, but I'm going to be twisting it up and freshening it up a little bit and hopefully making it work in a new and interesting way. But I'll say no more in case I change my mind and do something different from what I'm saying now. But
Sure.
I have an idea. I have an idea.
Awesome. So that's another. It's kind of. I'll ask the question again here in a minute. So we'll kind of touch a little bit deeper on it in just a second. But first, well, actually, we'll just go into that one. What are you working on currently, and what is next for you? That includes like your works in progress, maybe some conventions, anything.
Working on Songs of Chaos book 4. As of yet, there's not an official title. I have a working title. We'll see. These one-word titles are very difficult to get.
You've done good with them, man. I have to say, one-word titles are pretty hard.
They are really hard. Again, something I don't think I'll do for the next time because they're very, very difficult. Working on Songs 4, then I'll be working on Songs 5, and then who knows? Then who knows? But that'll keep me busy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Any conventions?
Probably this year, probably just Worldcon. I usually do a few in the UK, but since the Worldcon is here, and it's a really big one, I'll probably just do Worldcon.
Okay. And that's Glasgow? Is that Glasgow?
It's in Glasgow, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, should be good. We'll see. If anything else pops up, I'll let everyone know. But I think this year I just want to just do that one big one and try and crack on and get these big books written.
Exciting, man. So, are you reading anything right now?
I am listening to Making Money by Terry Pratchett, which is the sequel to Going Postal.
Yeah, which I heard is wonderful.
Yeah. Going Postal was really special. Making Money has gone over my head a little more. Maybe I just haven't. That doesn't. It's not as strong as Going Postal is very, very special. I've enjoyed Making Money a lot, but it feels a little less cohesive. Like the scenes are very funny, but I'm not getting the. It doesn't feel like a story in the same way as Going Postal is a story.
I haven't
think I'm going to be on a bit. Yeah, I think I'm going to go in. I've dipped in the past. I think I'm in a bit of a mood, so I think I'm going to continue on my Discworld trend at the moment. I think that's going to keep me happy. I've got sometimes you start an epic or a big sci-fi, and you think, do you know what? Actually, this is too heavy for me right now. I need to put that aside. I need something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that feeling. I have to kind of bring back up like Christopher Rocchio, a guy like him. I love Empires of Silence. I tried to dip into book 2, which I know I love. It's just not the time for me right now. So I totally agree. Man, I just wanted to thank you.
Can I have a question for you, Matt? If this time,
for sure.
Because we've got about, but like you've done Ascendant and Unbound. Well, who's your favorite character? If you have,
I have to say Holt, man. I love
Classic
just
Holt.
just because, and I'll tell you why. It's because I gravitated towards being an underdog, being maybe not an underdog, maybe being thought of as the person that couldn't amount to what he has, or being as special as we found out his relationship with Ash is. Okay, I can relate with that in a few ways. One I'll share is which we've kind of touched on, the Crohn's disease thing. I was playing football in high school, and I'm 6'5", and I was like 285 pounds. I had potential to play college and maybe be good at that. And come to find out, after I graduated, there was a reason that I didn't make it that far. I was always sick and in pain, and I didn't know why. So I relate to him and his relationship with Ash very, very deeply.
That's good, man. That's great. I'm just always interested to hear what people think. Yeah.
I mean, there's some very close seconds. I love Talia just because she's like kind of tough but soft at the same time. I can relate with that because I don't know. You find those times in life where you have to buck up, right? You have to be a man. Or I'm a father. So there's times where I have to, punish my child, and that's not fun. And these things that you have to kind of bite the bullet. And I want my kid to be successful and make good decisions. So I have to teach him or her. So I relate to many, many characters. And it's funny, I've never related to a dragon through a story before. So yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to continue and read some more of your work.
Thanks, man. I'm really glad to hear you're enjoying it, and hopefully Defiant continues that trend.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to be doing a lot more reviews. I'm going to review the first 2 books very soon on my channel and also on Fanfiatics. That's a new thing that I did this year, was do written reviews. I'm still trying to. Yeah, I hear they're okay. I think it's me, kind of overcoming that hurdle, because I never thought that I was any good at it, but we'll see. I think it's something that I want to be good at, so I'm going to continue doing it. But lastly, man, Mike, Michael, Mike, I'll call you Mike. I think we're on that terms now. But I wanted to say thank you so much for letting me borrow you and talk about your work. You're a real refreshing guy. Your personality and your prose, your books, your stories. So just thank you, man, for letting me hang out with you for a little bit and talking to somebody I look up to.
Oh, it was a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we can come back someday.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I have a lot of cool ideas in mind, and I'm glad you said that. For you guys that were here live, man, you're always so awesome. Thank you for sticking around and having so many wonderful things to say and ask. And for those who will watch in the future as well. Tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, I know you'll be asleep, Michael. It'll be like 2 a.m. your time. But I'll be talking with Bryce. Bryce from Shelf Centered. He's another wonderful booktuber. We're just going to be kind of kicking back, talking about books, man. So it'll be fun. 9 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see you guys then. Again, Michael R. Miller, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guys. That was great to be here. And thanks, everyone in the chat, for your questions and comments. It's been a great time.
Yes, it is. All right, guys. You have a wonderful time, and we'll see you at 9.